60. That's where they usually brought all the animals in to fatten them up, ready for slaughter. A lot of times, that's what they were. That's why they called them feedlots. But they also allowed you to have those animal units within a feedlot. But here's the difference. If it was a pasture area, which was normally nice, green, plush, you had to keep the animals at least 75 feet away from the nearest residence that was not owned by the person who owned the animals. But if it was a feedlot, you had to keep it 350 feet away from the nearest resident that was not owned by the person owning the animals, which is really difficult to do. If it's a less than an acre and you're classifying as a feedlot, it's going to have to be way back on your farm somewhere, way away from everything. So it's kind of difficult to even interpret in our today's terms when you're talking about subdivisions and towns. But one of the things that this resulted from a request by several citizens. I've actually had I've had emails from about at least 10 citizens requesting that we look at our ordinance and try to adjust it to be better in tune with, especially with the sustainable concept that we're having today. So I just got to looking around the internet, and I found hundreds of cities that they allow this. And matter of fact, one I was really shocked at was Los Angeles allows chickens in your backyard, and all you have to have is 5,000 square foot of land, which is very small. You can have up to 5 hens, no roosters. None of them allowed roosters. I noticed that. None of them allowed roosters. Now, I guess that's because of the noise and the nuisance they may become. But hens, they did allow for the purposes of having fresh eggs. That was the primary purpose, was to have fresh eggs and organic type eggs too, not just fresh, but organic. I guess they called them free range chickens. But now I guess I can't understand exactly why they call them free range if you have to contain them within a real small areas. But anyway. But what I'm here asking you about is it was requested that we seek some input. This is not an ordinance that you would adopt or approve because it's actually just a part of the city code. It's not the subregs. It's not the zoning ordinance, which that you fool with on a basis. But this is this is an ordinance that they're wanting to update. But the question was, does the Planning Commission have any input on this, especially in the realm of distances, lot sizes, square footages, and that type of thing? And really, that's all I'm asking is if you have any ideas that you think should be looked at, because what would have to happen, an ordinance would have to be drafted from the recommendations of all the groups gathered, and then it would have to go to the city council for approval. And I assume at that time there'd be any public input at that. If the public wanted to talk about it, discuss it, whatever, that's where that would happen. So with that, is there any thoughts or anything that you all have on it that I could take back? If you don't have it tonight, I'd be glad to hear from you in a few days. Yes.
Some sort of containment for the chickens. I mean, to me, free range means they're not in a little 6 square inch thing in a factory.
They do run the yard, maybe?
Well, I think either in a coop or a fence. The thing about putting them in town, and I think it's a great idea, we got a lot of cats. And I know we had allegedly on Jackson Street, we had a cat poisoning at one point because the next door neighbors were wild bird fans, and they didn't like the cats coming across. But so it's not a farm. These aren't farm cats. These are kind of dumb city cats, and they don't know what to do with the chicken. So keeping them separate may be a good idea.
Okay.
Dale,
what about square footage? What about distances? JT, was you going to say something? Oh, who was that? Somebody started saying something.
Yeah. It was a couple of years now ago, but some folks within Sustainable Berea took a look at this, looked at some of the ordinances in other cities, and came up with some suggested language, which we thought something that'd be reasonable would be chickens allowed in areas zoned residential with the following conditions: maximum of 6 hens for personal use, roosters prohibited.